We've got 48 people here, so I just want to say hi to the people who've come in since I started talking. I'm Mike Bloom, and we're going to talk about Zoom, and we're going to talk about polling in Zoom today. So it should be a pretty straightforward talk today. I want to leave it free form so that if people want to ask questions, they can do so. If it's something that's not pertinent for our discussion right now, I may just say, let's deal with that later so that we can get through the material today. But we're basically going to be talking, we're going to start about 10:05. I just pasted a PDF in the chat right now that you can take a look at. And this is not a Zoom poll PDF. This is a PDF for Poll Everywhere, which is going to be a more robust polling solution. So we may not get to talk about very much of Poll Everywhere today, but I wanted to give that to you at the beginning, just so you know that there are other options besides the Zoom polling. And that's a really nice PDF that they did. And I'll repost that PDF right now, but I'll also send it, if you signed up for the session, I'll send it out to everyone. And there it is again, that PDF. One of the nice things about the chat window, if you don't know it for right now, I'll tell you, you can save the chat locally so that if there are links that you want to save and things like that, when you're in chat, you can just click on the 3 dots and you can save the chat so that you can do it either at the beginning of the session, at the end of the session. So you'll notice that that's a really handy way if people are doing chat back and forth and you're like, oh, I wish I had that. So it's really easy to grab the chat. I sometimes forget to grab the chat, but Barbette, yeah, just go ahead and call out your questions for right now, because we're at 48 people. We're at actually 59 people. So we're going to get started in about 3 minutes, but Barbette, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering about recording the chat. If you click on record the chat, it just takes a snapshot of what the chat is at that moment, right? So if you got something later on, you'd have to take another snapshot of the chat.
Yeah. Okay. You can also, if it's your session, you can also have it set to automatically save the chat, and that's going to be in the configurations on the website at cwm.zoom.us. That's a good question, though. Yeah, and you'll notice that about the chat as well, is that it's very temporal. So if somebody enters late, they won't have that chat, the URL. So I just had to repost the chat if people noticed, because people came in a little bit late. So I had to repost that link. So we're at 60 participants right now, and it's 10:03. And any other questions that people have about polling? Any ways that people are going to be using polling in interesting ways? Are people who are using polling doing it because they're adding to their repertoire, or are they doing it because this is something that they have done in the past and they just want to find a way to replicate it? Or are they looking for ways to fill gaps now that they're teaching online or teaching in a blended environment?
Mike?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm interested in this function just, partly because I want to take attendance. And I asked this question before, like, is there any other way of taking attendance, like maybe copying the list of participants, or is this our only way to do so?
There's so many ways to do everything, Afer. It just depends on what you're comfortable doing, right? So I'll show you how you might take attendance in Zoom polling. And then, we can go from there if that's going to work for you. And if polling is one of the things that you're interested in already, that might be a really convenient way to do Zoom polling, Zoom attendance. Okay, so let's get started. It's 10:05 right now. And I figured that what I'll do is I'm not going to be able to host the chat very effectively. So I might take a look at it. If people want to call out an important question or something like that that I'm not addressing, please do it. But I'm not gonna, I'll be checking the chat from time to time, but not really very effectively. So we're gonna start with a poll. And I'm gonna launch this poll in Zoom, and you should all see this now. So just so that you get the idea, for those of you who have never seen a Zoom poll before, we're just gonna take a poll. So now from the instructor side, I can see how long it has taken. So I see that we're 20 seconds in. I can see how many people have responded, and we have a pretty good response rate already. It's 57 out of 65 have responded. And I'm going to give people another 30 seconds. It's now 30 seconds in to respond. We've got a few stragglers. There are 6 people who haven't responded. You know who you are. Hopefully you know who you are if you haven't responded.
Can I change my response?
No. I don't think you can. Okay,
Mike,
so we're just about at 60 seconds, and I'm going to end the poll. Okay, question.
yes. And when you're doing a poll like that, do you have the option of other and a space for people to write in their answers if they're not happy with any of the above? Not that that had anything to do with your poll.
So anything that is more advanced than what I just showed you is not going to go in Zoom. You're going to need to go to Poll Everywhere.
Okay.
This is the limitations of poll of Zoom. It can take a poll that is a multiple choice poll that people can either select one answer for or multiple answers for. And what happens is after the fact, it's going to put it in a spreadsheet, and I'll show you all that stuff to see what you can do with that stuff and how you use it to take attendance and to use it for grading, whatever else you want it to do, right? Okay, so now the poll is ended, and now I can share the results. You don't see the results right now, but I can click on share. What do you see? Do you see my actual polls where it says poll 1 favorite things? So what do you see right now?
You don't have your screen sharing on, so we don't see anything.
So you don't see anything. So you just took the poll. Right, so you just took the poll and that was it. So now what I can do is let me share my screen, and hopefully you'll be able to see the Zoom window here. Sometimes you can't. So now can you see this polls thing that I have here? Okay, great. So from an instructor's perspective, that's what the instructor sees. Once they end the poll, they can then relaunch the poll if they want, or they can share the results of the poll, right? So I can share the results right now, and I just click on share results, and now I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay, so now you saw what I saw. Now you should also see the results. So we see most people here these days would like a picnic in the park. I don't blame you, considering the ability to social distance but still be outside of your house. Okay, so that's a poll, and let's do another poll very quickly. And I built 2 polls into this into this Zoom poll, so into this Zoom session, so I can deploy any of those polls that I'd like, and now I can relaunch this poll.
Hey, Mike, I have a question.
Yes.
You can't build polls kind of on the fly in a Zoom session, right? You have to pre-build them.
You would have to be pretty good.
Okay. Yeah.
So
cool.
I've seen it. So here's where you can do it, and this is where it's really convenient to have a Zoom concierge or a Zoom buddy. They could theoretically, if they knew what they were doing, they could do that. They could make it on the fly. And I've been in classes before where the teacher is continuing to talk, and the person in charge of the chat is also in charge of creating polls on the fly. So that can work, but you cannot do that as the instructor. It would be really difficult. I think the only way you could do that as an instructor is, let's say you sent everybody out to a breakout room, and you had some time to work on that yourself. So you might say, go out to a breakout room for 5 minutes, and then yes, you could open up the Zoom poll and you could create the Zoom poll. So let me share my screen with you, and I'll kind of show you how that looks for people who'd like to see how to go about doing that. I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results with everybody. And we can see people who are planning to teach face-to-face is 27%. Okay. I actually was down on the face-to-face thing at first, and I went into the classroom and I made that video to help people see what it would look like. And then I actually had a session, and I was actually kind of energized to be in the classroom with other people in the same classroom. So yeah, but I don't know. I'm not going in. So, but I really did feel that energy. So those 27%, I can really see that. And why are you interested in live polling? Okay, so let's take a look and see why people are interested in live polling. So keeping students engaged is a huge reason, totally, I can see that. Attendance, some of you are going to be doing attendance and knowledge check. Adjusting your lecture based on student responses. Oh, one person was in the wrong session. So we did have a comment about students who may have visual problems seeing this. So are there people here who are having problems looking at what's going on here? Is it difficult to see what those poll results are, or the voting or anything like that? So there are some people who say, yeah, there is problems. So that's something that you should keep in mind with your students. And you may want to have a poll at the beginning. And Gail, thanks, that's a great comment. So if the students are having problems, or if they're visually impaired, you may want to have something at the very beginning of class to do like a check of the tech that we're going to be using, right? A tech check. And you say, here's a low stakes thing. It's no points, but we're going to just take this little quiz right now. And the feedback is, tell me if you had problems with that. And this is one of those things I think would be important to be sensitive about. So thanks for that, Gail. And I'm sorry I can't do anything about the size of the font for you, but hopefully some of the readers that you have, like the JAWS reader for Windows and some of the other things, might be useful in Zoom. And as I said, if people have questions, I'll kind of take them later on. Let me run through what it looks like, right? I'll run through a Zoom poll, creating one, deploying one, what things look like. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to go into Zoom. Okay, so first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to decide if I want to create a meeting, or create a meeting for a different reason, like a class or something like that, or if I just want to have the Zoom poll in my profile. You can do both things. So if I go into settings in my profile, I'm sorry, not in settings. Well, here, let me start the way that you'll probably start. You'll create a new meeting. So I'm going to go to a meeting, and I'll schedule a new meeting. And now let's say I'll call this meeting, Russian 101, right? And I'll say when it is, and I'll decide the duration of it. And now it's a recurring meeting, so I'll just decide it's going to be every week. Maybe it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I've got a bunch of different options here that are really important for me to talk about now. Registration required, I wouldn't choose. Meeting options, enable join before host. I usually like enable join before host. Now, here's another thing that I think is going to be important if you're going to try to take attendance in Zoom polling, is you're going to want to check the only authenticated users can join. The reason for this is that what's going to happen is it's going to put this in a spreadsheet for you at the end. And if you're letting non-authenticated users join, like I did in this session, if you didn't log in with the right credentials, or if you just followed the link and you didn't log in at all, where it says who that person was, the field in the spreadsheet will be blank. And I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a second. Okay, so I choose only authenticated users can join. And you could pre-assign breakout rooms if you want, but that's not what we're here to do today.
Hey Mike.
Yes.
Quick question about the authenticated users. Mm-hmm. Is there any downside to choosing that setting?
Yes. There's no downside to doing that because every student should have an account.
So this is just, it'll require them to sign in through their William & Mary account rather than go in through some other avenue?
There's a caveat here that I need to explain that I'm working on to get IT to look at. So the thing is, we don't have it set up yet to authenticate only to William and Mary. So it's either authenticated or not authenticated. And authenticated at least means that they need their email address in there. So at least you know what that email address, it may not be a William and Mary email address, it may be a Gmail address, but that at least gets, you know, and then you can say to the problem students, listen, sign in the correct way, go to cwm.zoom.us and sign in with your William and Mary credentials before you enter this class. So, you know, then at least you have a way to track the problem if you authenticate users, okay? So that's a really important step. If we're gonna be using Zoom polling and wanna get that data, that's the important step. We're gonna need to have the authentication.
Mike,
Yes.
sorry, I'm still trying to wrap my mind 100% around this, but there are other ways to take attendance
Oh, absolutely.
using Zoom that don't involve using a poll, but it would still require them. I'm just trying to simplify things for first-year students. And
Absolutely. No, this is polling. This is not the other ways to take attendance. This is not talking about attendance, but I just wanted to, if you're going to do any testing, if you're going to do any quantitative, you know, analysis where you need to know the student name, this is a critical part of any of your polls. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
You can force registration for the session if you want to take attendance. That you can do.
Okay.
You don't have to do a poll. You can do a registration, but registration has its own, you know,
Okay.
hoops to jump through.
All right.
So those are options, but this is mainly for polling.
Gotcha.
So take a look. I've created this meeting, this Russian 101 meeting, right? And I saved it. Now, what I see at the bottom here of each meeting is going to be a poll, right? I also can live stream. That's kind of nice. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but that's the other great thing about Zoom that I really want to sort of mention right now is that if you haven't browsed through the cwm.zoom.us main dashboard here and see all of the different things that you can actually do, all of the switches, all of the different things you can turn on and off, you should really take the time to take a look at that because it's really, really powerful. And the more comfortable you get with Zoom, the more comfortable your students are going to get with interacting with you over Zoom. So let's talk about polling. So to poll, you notice I have this poll here and you have not created any poll yet. So I'll click on add. And now this is the only interface we get. There's no other poll type. This is it. So I can enter the title. So I'll say poll 1 and I'll say question 1. And then I'll say answer 1, answer 2. So if you can do that, you can create a poll on the fly, Arthur. Right? Now you have to create it in the right class, right? So you'd have to go into the class that you're doing and then you'd have to create that. And then I'll scroll down.
Quick question. Sorry, Mike. What if I tend to just use my Zoom room as my class meeting room. That seems the most, just struck me as the simplest, the way you're using yours now, I guess.
Right.
So
yeah, you can create polls.
I can create polls in that and then activate them from.
Yeah, I always forget where that is. You know, I look for it and then I look like an idiot when I'm trying to teach because I always forget where it is, but it's not in the regular place that the meeting room polls are. So I can, and then I always forget and I'm gonna have to find it. So,
Okay,
but I'll
worries.
find it. I can find it. I don't care if I look like a fool. So this is the meeting room poll. So I can create this one poll, and then I have a couple of options. I can add a question to this poll. So it was like the second one that you saw, where you saw both questions all at the same time. Or I can just save this poll, and I can have as many polls as I want in the class. So that's how I'm gonna. I can you know, pop a poll up one at a time rather than that whole big sheet, right? I'll hit save. And now you'll notice that down at the bottom here, I've got this poll 1, poll 1. That's what I call poll 1. One question, it's not anonymous, so that's gonna keep track of everybody, right? And
I've got a quick question. I'm not seeing the option below. The last thing on my screen is delete this meeting, save as a meeting template, edit this meeting, or start meeting. I don't see poll or live stream at the bottom of my screen.
oh, so maybe in your settings, you don't have polling enabled. So if you go to settings, you should have polling as one of the options, like down here. Let's try to find polling. Private chat.
It's turned off.
There it is. Polling is turned off for you for some reason. Let's start with that. So everyone, if you're logged in to your Zoom and you go to settings, you click on settings to make sure polling is turned on. And I believe it's in meeting basic.
Yeah, it's in meeting basic.
And then you see there's this polling thing and you can turn it off if you want to, which I don't know why you would, but maybe it got turned off by accident. So that's how you do it.
Show Zoom window during screen share is also there. You were saying before, sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't. That's a setting as well.
It is a setting as well, right? So, and that's why I say, you prove my point, go through all this stuff. There's lots of cool stuff that you will see that you may like and you may not like. Now, if you turn something on and then you're like, I can't figure out why something's not working again, remember that you turned that thing on. So then you'll remember to turn it off. Just don't turn on a whole bunch of stuff and then you'll never remember, what was important and what wasn't. So here you see for my base, and here's the other thing that you have to realize. Settings are for your global room. So my room, my/Mike Bloom that I have, that's just my office. But they will also carry on as general settings for all of your meetings, unless you supersede those with the meeting settings. So your general settings will take will set all of your meeting types, but then your individual meeting will take precedence over that. So you can turn things on and off in your individual meeting that might be turned on or off in the opposite way in your settings, if that makes sense. So like I can make only authenticated users join my meetings. Over here, I could check that. Or only authenticated users can join meetings from web client. Guess what? I have no idea what the difference is between these two things. So I check them both if I want authenticated users only to join, because I'm not taking any chances. All kinds of cool things. So just go through and see what those things are. So I've created my poll. I've deployed my poll. How do I deploy a poll? Deploying a poll is really easy.
Mike, sorry, a quick question.
Yes.
I usually create a meeting using the software that's installed rather than the web interface.
I suggest you don't do that.
Okay.
Everything that I'm going to tell you is based on the fact that the web interface is the coolest thing. And it's like if somebody tells me I'm using Firefox for something, I'll say, please don't do that. Please use Chrome.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, it causes unnecessary problems. So anyway, here we are. I've given the poll and now I've deployed the poll. Do people understand how to deploy a poll? If you want me to explain how to deploy a poll, I'm happy to do that. I'll just
Mike, this is a stupid question, but where is the settings menu?
Oh, great. So if you go to cwm.zoom.us and you log in, if you see my screen right now, I'm going to log out just so everyone sees what I'm doing. Sign out. I'm going to go to cwm.zoom.us. In Chrome, I like Chrome, and I'm going to click on sign in. I see this happy guy and I know I'm in the right place. I'm going to click sign in. And I have already signed in somewhere. So I probably signed into my email or to Blackboard or something like that. So Zoom is going to take those credentials and pass them on. That's why I'm logged in correctly to my William and Mary account. And I can check that by clicking here on my name, on my face at the top right, and I can see what account I'm logged in with. And it's my mxbloom@wm.edu account.
Okay, yeah, for whatever reason, I did sign in that way, but then all I had was like the login window rather than all these things up, so I didn't know what you were talking about. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now you see it. Okay, great. So now that I'm here are all of my settings and everything like that, right? So I'm going to go to show you guys what it looks like. First, let me stop my share. And I'm going to start a share of this window instead. Okay, so here's this dashing guy. But now you'll notice that I have this polling button right down here that you'll see. And let me Does everyone see the polling button? It's right at the bottom. And if you click on the polling button, that's going to bring up your poll that you've created, right? And now what does that poll look? Well, I showed you what the poll looked like. So that's the whole way that you create a poll. So now that I've created a poll, I've deployed the poll, I need to get the results from that poll. How am I going to do
Can I
that?
ask real quickly before, if you're already screen sharing, say with a PowerPoint, will the poll pop up on top of it?
That's a good question. Let's try it right now. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll put up the whiteboard. And now I'm going to go to the poll. And I'm going to stop sharing my poll. And I'm going to relaunch my poll. And there it is. So you can start answering the poll, see if it works.
Mike, can you explain about deploying the poll? What is that exactly?
So deploying the poll, it's basically just clicking on the little polling thing and then deciding which poll you would like to deploy. So here, let me show you the picture that I had over here, and that'll kind of, I'll stop my screen share. So I can even stop my screen share, you'll notice, and the poll continues. But here, I'll show you this other window. I'll start a screen share again, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay. Okay, so here I'm sharing this other screen with you. And I'm going to end this poll. And I'm going to close it. Okay, and you don't have to share the results. So now you'll notice here, when I'm deploying a poll, if I've created multiple polls for a particular place, you'll have a downward arrow here on all of your polls. And you can click on the poll that you want for that particular meeting room. And polls won't cross over meeting rooms. So you'll only see the polls that you created for that meeting room. Okay? And so you can choose the poll that you want and then launch that right from there.
Mike?
Yes.
So if you have a recurring meeting and you create a handful of sort of, one single answer polls, like Paul was saying in the chat window, do they pop up as possibilities every time you launch that recurring meeting?
Exactly. So you can have like a temperature check or something like that that you want at every session. But now remember, if you want to save that data, it's going to write over it. So you're going to want to download that CSV file between classes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Other questions before we go to take a look at how you're going to access the data?
Mike, I think I lost or missed a step. Maybe I saw it. The very first step for deploying the poll is to press the button at the bottom. From the instructor's point of view, I got confused.
Yeah, just press the polling button at the bottom.
At the bottom of the screen. Okay.
Exactly. And then you just follow the steps to deploy the poll. And if you have multiple polls, if you saw that picture I just shared in the last screen, you'll see that as a drop down that you can choose whichever poll you'd like to deploy.
Okay.
Okay. And you're going to be practicing this with very low stakes stuff at the very beginning, right? So you're going to practice it and you're going to know how to do it and you're going to be comfortable doing it if you haven't done it yet, right? So questions?
The reverse of the question we just asked before, if you have recurring classes set up, you only want to do a poll in a certain class. So if you set up the poll in that class, it's not automatically going to replicate it for all the recurring classes. Is that right?
Correct.
If the poll is class specific, even if you have recurring classes set up.
Yeah, the poll is class specific, right?
Okay. My other question is, do the results automatically show raw numbers and percentages? So
yes.
The results just showed up as percentages, and then the other one had raw numbers and percentages.
I'm not sure why that was the case, but usually it just shows up as both numbers and raw percentages. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to mute everyone again. Okay. Now, I'm not sure who's giving feedback, but here's another tip. You should probably pay attention to what you sound like and look like when you're teaching your class remotely, because students are going to have to watch you for a lot of time. So, you know, if you need a headset to make yourself heard better so that there's no echoing or something like that, sound quality is going to be the most important thing. And, you know, and for some classes, it's really going to be important to see somebody's face. So make sure you keep track of that. And if you want to hypnotize and bamboozle your students, you can do what Arthur Knight is doing right now. And I like that. I'm going to spotlight his video so everyone can see that. All right, I'm going to stop spotlighting because I think we've had our caffeine for today. Oh, nice. Okay, so here we go. Let's take a look now. Let's go back. We did the Zoom poll. Now we want to get that data and we want to do something with the data. So I'm back to cwm.zoom.us. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, so I'm back here, cwm.zoom.us. And in my reports area, I've got a meeting report. Now, it doesn't make any sense, but you know, you would think it would say like polls or something like that. There's nothing that would indicate that this is actually a poll report until you get to here. And then you're going to ask for a poll report. You could ask for a registration report. So if you're asking everyone to register, that's one way to get your registration report. But I'm going to get a poll report. And now I'm going to say what my timetable is. I want my polls from, let's say, everywhere from July 2nd to, what's today? August. Oh, it's not letting me choose that. I guess it'll just be August 1st. Oh, maximum duration is 1 month. I didn't know that. So let's do July 23rd to August 22nd. Perfect. So now I'll search. So now I've got all of these reports, right? And it's telling me the start time, and it's telling me the meeting ID, and it's telling me the attendees, and it's telling me how many people actually voted, right? So I can go ahead and generate this report. So now it's generated my report and I can download it. So let me go ahead and download it.
Mike, I'm confused. I thought you said it overwrote the reports, but you're seeing a whole bunch of reports, so it isn't overwriting, or it is?
These are different. Oh, maybe it overwrites it for, that's something that I should check because I know it overwrites it for the session. Maybe it does save it after each session. I think it saves it after each session. Yes, I'm sorry. So I misspoke. It saves it after each session, but if you do the same poll in the same session, it'll overwrite those. That's how it works.
Mike, can I ask a semi-related question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see you almost every meeting that I'm seeing, or that I saw on the previous screen, it's your personal meeting room.
That's that's all I do.
Okay, so I typically, when I create a recurring or any meeting, I don't use my personal Zoom link because I don't want somebody to be able to pop into it if I'm talking to my mother.
Sure.
So, and if you use a class specific,
I think that would enliven a conversation with my mother, but you do what you need to do.
Okay. But if you're using a class specific recurring number, then the polls would automatically stay linked to that. You'd be able to see in this report exactly which
Exactly. Yeah, I just do this because I'm lazy. If you want it, and that's why I suggest that what you do, and you'll see that in how I just went through it, is you'll create your meeting and you'll attach the polls to that meeting. This is just because I don't teach a class, so I don't have any need for setting these class sessions up, right? But now I have these two polls and I'm going to download one. So I'm going to hit download. I downloaded it already, but I'll download it again. And now down here at the bottom, I'll show it in the Finder, and it saves it as a CSV file, okay? And so I'm going to show you what happens when I open a CSV file in Microsoft Excel on the Mac. I'm already bad with spreadsheets, I'll just say that. And you'll see when it pops up in a second here what it has done. If it looks upside down and backwards to you, it's because it's upside down and backwards, as you can see. So what I do, if this happens to you, this is a known problem on the Mac. I just scroll down 50 lines, and then I scroll back up, and everything is okay. So remember what I was talking about before, where this is the data that's actually given in the spreadsheet. So I see the number, I see the username, and that's how they log in. How their name appears in Zoom. It's not their username at William & Mary. Their user email as well, as you can see here. And why is it not letting me? Man, do I hate Excel. Ah, there we go. And you'll notice that the user email, some of them it didn't fill out at all. And that's because some of these people did not log in. They just got there however, right? Now, all of the other ones seem to have registered with their William & Mary email address, but that's not necessarily going to be the case when you get your students. So that when you get your students to fill out the form. And you'll know what time they submitted it, which is, I guess, going to be useful. And then you see what the question was, and you see what the answer was. So I'm going to stop my share. So that's the data that you get once you submit, once you get that polling data.
Mike, can I ask, it looks like there were less responses than actual people responding. For example, I don't see myself. I might be not registered or so, but I also didn't see my response.
I think it's only going to do that once I stop this meeting. I think it only sends that CSV file once this meeting is over. It's sort of like the meeting recording. I can't get the meeting recording until it's over. So this was yesterday's that I was showing.
I see. Okay.
It was my cheat. Sorry. So are there questions at this point of how you would go about creating a poll, how you go about getting that data, what's in the data when you actually access it?
Mike, first of all, thank you very much. Finally, I understood how to take attendance using Zoom. So people who did not answer, they were still there, right? They were present, they just did not answer. So in terms of attendance, as long as you have their names, then they were there.
Right. Now, what we can do is I can show you what it would look like if I created that same session. For people who want to join back up, I'm happy to do that. So this will give you a nice way to leave the session and not come back if you don't want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to now set my settings, and I'll show you this. I'll share my screen with you. I'm going to set my Zoom settings to force authentication. And then, so I'm going to click only authenticated users can join meetings. Hopefully you can see that. And only authenticated users can join from the web client, right? So now I've got that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send everyone my Zoom Room account where you're going to go back. And don't be afraid to do this with your students either. If you want them to rejoin a room if something goes wrong, it's very easy. So I'm going to send this to you. The only thing I don't like about the chat is that I always have to check to make sure it's not a private message before I send it, because somebody will send me a private message and then I won't realize it, and then it'll automatically respond to that person. So there's my, oops, that's wrong. Don't go there. And, you know, I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. You just say, oops, and you go on. Maybe I'll do like a Bob Ross kind of thing where I'll come on every day and instead of painting a picture, I'll show you some technology. Okay, so there's the right one with the slash. So I'm going to close this session. I'm going to open the next session, and hopefully those settings will have taken effect, and you're going to have to authenticate to join the session. We'll see what it looks like for your students. Okay. So if you've copied that, I'm going to end meeting for all, and I'll see you just in a minute. Okay, so that is the long and short of creating a poll in Zoom. Now, I will again, as I said at the beginning of the session, I did want to share with you Let me mute everyone. Okay. All right, so I muted everyone. So let me just share with you again. I'll share my screen with you, and I'll share that document that I had, if I can find it. So what I showed to everybody at the beginning, for people who may have come in late, is there's this great document. We're not going to be able to talk about Poll Everywhere because it's so incredibly complicated. There's so many things that it can do that, you know, it's easy to set up a Poll Everywhere poll, but it's hard to really get the benefits of Poll Everywhere that would make it worth it for you to use Poll Everywhere over Zoom that I could explain to you in 10 minutes. So instead of that, there's the Poll Everywhere site has really, really great content on it to help you use their stuff, especially in classes. And they just came out with this new Poll Everywhere guide on engaging students in online and hybrid learning environments. And it's a free PDF that I'm going to, again, put in the chat. In case people missed it. And yes, recordings of the session will be available in case anybody wants to watch this scintillating display again. And now I'll take questions from people if they have questions.
Mike, this is more of a comment than a question because I'm using Poll Everywhere, and presumably there are people there who are using it more, are more familiar with it. The one thing is to save you some time is their chat support is fantastic. So if you have, if you start using Poll Everywhere and run into problems, you know, maybe they're just being really patient with me, but they've gotten back remarkably rapidly and with very detailed. The second thing is with Poll Everywhere, the results, at least of what they call multiple choice, can pop up in your PowerPoint instantaneously. Their surveys, which are what we would consider a poll, as far as I understand it, don't show up as easily. Zoom would, if I'm catching this right, Zoom would actually be a better way of just conducting a survey and having it show up for your students on Zoom. Whereas if you're using a PowerPoint and want the things to show up inside the PowerPoint, it wouldn't show up as easily. Some of the other, what they call polls in Poll Everywhere do show up like they're multiple choice questions. I know that's convoluted if you're not using Poll Everywhere.
No, Clay, I think that's a really important and great comment because that's another affordance of Zoom. You don't need to be sharing your screen when you do it, right? You need to be sharing your screen when you do a Poll Everywhere. And if you're just doing a conversation, it may be bulky for you to say, oh, now I want to do a poll. How am I going to do this poll? Let me share my screen. Now I'll get the results. I think you're exactly right. I think that's a real benefit. Okay, and I'm now practicing my muting of everybody, as you notice. And you just kind of wait until the noise level gets to certain, and then you just do a little mute. Other comments, questions? I think Barbette had her hand up.
One question, well, more of a comment. Aren't there tutorials available on Poll Everywhere on the Steely site or somewhere on the blended learning site?
Yeah, let me share those as well. And that's on, if you go to keepteaching.wm.edu, that's the main site, and then you can get to our Poll Everywhere tutorials right from there. And let me just share that link with you. Okay, there you go.
Okay, and one question then. If you want to take attendance using the Zoom poll, as I understand it, what you would do is set up a poll that says present and have the students click in who are present. Is that basically what you would be doing?
Well, you could be slyer than that. You could actually have a fun question, and then the students who answered, are present.
Okay.
Otherwise it's like, I would feel cheated if I was a student. I'm like, yes, I'm present. Instead, you ask them like a daily trivia question. You can tell them it's the attendance question, but it's a fun question.
Okay, yeah, I was just worried about if students didn't realize that the question was something that I was taking attendance by. If they don't answer it,
Yeah.
I would still know that they were there.
Yeah, I would say attendance question.
Okay.
Yeah. You could know that they were there if you did the registration.
Mm.
And then they wouldn't have any question. But if you're doing a poll anyway, then you might as well use that. If you just want attendance, then you can do the registration.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? That was a good question, by the way. Yeah, Rob. You need to unmute yourself. Rob, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. When you showed the poll before, there was that anonymous button at the top. When you didn't click it, what's the purpose of that? Because you didn't click it, but our names, there was no names associated with them, and you showed the results. So what's that anonymous button?
So the anonymous means that I won't get that information in my spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. So
It just will. It'll be anonymous to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be the dead horse, but the results of the poll you just showed have percentages, but not raw numbers. So is there a setting if you want to show both?
Well, let's see. When I'm looking at it, I have percentages and raw numbers. And when I share the results, you don't see that? What do you see?
I just see percentages.
Oh, so I see the things I'm seeing something different because I see the bracketed whole numbers. So I think if you wanted to share that, shoot me an email about that and we'll take a look and see if that's possible. But I didn't notice that before. Yeah, because I can see it as the instructor. If you want the students to see it, you could theoretically take a picture of it and show it to them, but maybe there's a better way to do that. So we can get together and I'll share that information with everybody afterwards.
Mike, I wanted to go back to the poll reports. I tried to generate a poll report from a class I had a couple of weeks ago, and it told me unable to generate report since the meeting does not require registration. And so I just wanted to confirm that in order to get a poll report with names and things in it, I need to have people, my students register for the meeting, sign in through the William & Mary site.
That is not a problem that I've seen, Paul, I have to say. I'll be honest with you. But we can definitely take a look at that. I'll take a look at that afterwards because I've not had that reported to me. Thanks for that.
Mike, during the meeting, you turned on a spotlight video on one of the participants. Can you just share with us, how did you do that?
So whenever there's more than 2 people in a meeting, you have the option as the host to spotlight somebody's video. And I'm looking at everybody to make it easier, I'm looking at everybody in gallery view. And if people don't know how to switch gallery view on and off, that's really easy. If you're on a computer, it's at the top right of your screen. You can toggle between speaker view and gallery view. If you're on an iPad or other tablet, it might be on the top left of your screen. So if you're in gallery view and you're watching everybody, you can see everybody's face as the host. And I can do things like I can make somebody else the host, whatever. But now if I wanted to spotlight somebody, so if I wanted to spotlight Arthur Knight, for example, I'll give Arthur some warning so he can tidy up. I'm just kidding, Arthur. There are 3 dots by everybody's name. It's that everyone has access to. So you have different abilities when you click on those 3 dots. One of them that you have, I think, is like pin video or something like that, and then you will be looking at that person only, which is a little creepy, but you could do that. But now I can hit spotlight video as the host, and now everyone is automatically shown Arthur. If you were in gallery view, it sucks you out of gallery view until you change it again, and you can change it. You can turn back from spotlight view to gallery view, but until I, as the host, click cancel the spotlight video, which is going to be at the top right, then it's going to continue to show that person. And now it just picked up on me talking, so then it focused on me again.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Can you spotlight more than one person at a time?
No.
Okay.
good question.
It is a good question. That's one of the ones that I've had the most often. And at this point,
actually, I want to. Yeah, actually, I would like to qualify that. Aren't there more options that you have with respect to spotlighting and split screen when you're using, say, the webinar version than the level that we as faculty are using? As I understand, I co-hosted an event. I co-curated an event, an alumni event from my alma mater. And there are a range of options when you go and you subscribe to Zoom. And if I am not mistaken, when you subscribe at the webinar level, you have a lot more options over like what you're going to do in terms of, let's say, the broadcast aspects of this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't have the webinar version is a pay-per-play.
Yeah, it's a higher subscription charge. It's a high, and we do have the option as William and Mary faculty, but we have to go through our IT, and also our departments have to pay an additional, I don't know what, $50 a month in order to have that subscription add-on. Thank you.
No, that's a great point.
Can you get the subscription add-on for just one class meeting and pay per time?
I would write to IT and ask that question, Barbette. That's a great question. Just write to support@wm.edu and ask them, what the situation is about getting a webinar license for, limited use.
Yes, I did request. I have already requested a webinar license, but it's a monthly feature. It's a monthly charge or whatever the rate is. It's not like, like let's say it's $50 a month extra that your department will be, or William and Mary will be charged. It's not like, say, I'm only going to use it for like one class, so therefore I only get $10 extra a month. You get it or you don't.
I think it is possible to do it as a one-off as well, because some departments did it for their commencement ceremonies. They did it as a webinar instead of a Zoom meeting.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't speak to that. It's just as easy to get that information from IT rather than us to guess about that kind of stuff. So if you're interested, definitely write to IT.
Yeah, you don't have to do like a year subscription. You can do it just for a month or short limited period of time. But Barbette's question was like, can I just get it for one class? And it's like, well, your class is going to go for like, what, 4 months. So you would be buying a like 4-month subscription as opposed to like half a 4-month subscription. You know what I mean?
Right. I was thinking of using it though to spotlight people in one class period where I was going to do a fishbowl discussion group.
Let's do this conversation offline. I think this is a great point, but we're not going to resolve it back and forth. Other questions? Got just a couple of minutes.
Trying to think through first semester, first year students and levels of anxiety and all of that. So it seems very easy to use. It seems like one option is to use Zoom. And I'm just trying to understand for that particular class where I might have students who hadn't used a lot of Zoom. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this. I'm going to poll them before they come to campus for my call 150 and ask them about their Zoom use. But if they're not super savvy with it, am I just adding another layer of like, oh God, I had to register the right way to get in? Or is it something that, is the right thing to do for fall semester freshmen, that like, hey, this is the way, every time you come into a session, this is the way you have to do it.
That's a great question, Jennifer. And I think that your anxiety is probably coming from a place of not being sure of the technology yourself and not knowing exactly why you're doing it. So I think the more comfortable you are with whatever it is that you're asking the students to do, the better it's going to be for you and for your students. If you're unsure, I wouldn't do it. If you're comfortable with it and you feel like you can talk the students through it and give them what they need to be able to do what you need to keep it, to keep attendance, to keep them engaged, all that stuff. And if you find it valuable, there's no reason why you shouldn't invest. But if you're not invested in it, I think, yeah, don't bother.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I found my problem.
Oh, good.
The problem was that it defaulted to clicking on registration report, and I hadn't had my students register, so of course there was nothing. When I clicked on poll report, I got the poll report.
Great, thanks. Okay, other questions? I'm cognizant that we're running up on 11 o'clock, so I want to thank everybody. This meeting has been recorded, so if you want to impose this on your friends and relatives, you can do that. And I just want to thank everyone. Let me see if I think I can hang out for a little bit if people want to stay. But yeah, I can hang out for a little bit. So if people wanted to stay and ask questions, feel free. Otherwise, thank you all for coming. I know that this is kind of a lost weekend for everybody because we're getting ready for classes, and I wish you all luck and health and happiness as you start the semester.